A lot of you guys are going to be familiar with this name, Kamille Cupcake McKinney. We have talked about this quite a few times. We've definitely talked about it in an extensive form, so we're going to keep this a little bit shorter. If you want to kind of follow the history of this story, I would think that the best thing to do would probably be to watch our previous videos. Just go to our search bar on our channel, type in Cupcake's name, and it'll bring you up to multiple videos that we've talked about this. So this is more or less going to be a pretty dramatic update in this story because now we actually have a guilty conviction in this story, which is huge because I didn't know how we were going to get here, if we were going to even be able to get to this point. So this is kind of a bittersweet moment. But before we get to talking about these two people that you see on my screen, I need to forewarn you what type of content you're going to be watching. Some viewers may find the following content offensive and controversial. The information in this video comes from multiple sources, including court records, official police charges, news web articles, and interviews. This video commentary also contains my personal opinions about the facts of this story. The point is to use this story as a cautionary tale in hopes of preventing tragedies like these to children going forward. Viewer discretion is advised. That is your official disclaimer. And now I don't actually have to read that anymore, so I'm thankful that I got that recorded. Now, this angel that you guys see on my screen is a beautiful little girl. We've talked so extensively, not only about her biological father, just everything tied to this story. But the people or the person in this case that we're going to focus on is this person that you guys see on my screen who actually gave the courts and police a fake, incorrect name, as you guys can see where it says Derek Irisha Brown. That's not her real name. And I actually have it in a video where there was a lady that went live who said that she actually knew her from back in the day that gave her real name. And I don't quite remember what her real name is off the top of my head. But like I said, you can go back and watch that video. But Derek Irisha Brown is not her actual name. I think that's a name that she gave probably to try to cover her tracks and get away from being held accountable for this. Birmingham, Alabama. Following a trial that spanned a week, a jury found a woman of kidnapping 3-year-old Cupcake McKinney from a party in Birmingham in 2019, turning up dead days later. Derek Irisha Brown. That is not her actual name, but that's the name that they're naming her as. 32 years old, which I'm not even sure how accurate that is. And if you're wondering and saying to yourself, she looks like she's slow as a bottle of molasses, I'm telling you she is that woman. Oh, Quintessa. Her name is Quintessa Jackson. This is why I love my live audience. Thank you. I just remembered you put her first name and I remembered her last name. Quintessa M. Jackson, because that was the way that the woman said it. You've got to go and watch that video. That video is an experience. I'll say that. It's an experience. Quintessa Jackson, that is her name, was found guilty of kidnapping that resulted in the death and one count of conspiracy to kidnap a minor. On October 12th of 2019, McKinney was kidnapped during a party in the Tom Brown Village housing project in Birmingham's Avondale neighborhood. Her disappearance sparked both a city and statewide search for the girl. While Cupcake McKinney was missing, police developed Brown and her boyfriend, Patrick Stallworth, who was that weirdo that you saw in the picture next to her, as suspects and questioned both of them on the girl's disappearance. 10 days later, on October 22nd of 2019, former Birmingham Police Chief Patrick Smith reported that the remains that were believed to be those of Cupcake McKinney had been found in a dumpster near an apartment building in Center Point where Brown and Stallworth had been staying. Okay? The next day, Smith confirmed that the remains, which had been taken to a landfill to be inspected, had been positively identified as being Cupcake Kamille McKinney. During the trial, Brown's attorneys claimed that Stallworth was actually the one at fault, not Brown. They claim that she was in Tom Brown Village the night of McKinney's kidnapping to see the father of her children, Kevin Nail. However, Nail testified that he was not there that night and that there was no plans to meet that night. So she lied about that. Prosecutors maintain that Brown had a chance to save McKinney's life but chose not to. Both Brown and Stallworth were subsequently arrested and charged with both state and federal charges related to kidnapping and capital murder. Capital murder can absolutely result in the death penalty. So that's a pretty serious thing if they don't get life in prison. Okay? He's facing life in prison without the possibility of parole. Brown and Stallworth are also facing capital murder charges in Jefferson County for McKinney's death. Let me give you guys the fair usage, and I got a couple of news videos. Here we go. Federal law allows citizens to reproduce, distribute, or exhibit portions of copyrighted motion pictures, videotapes, or video discs under certain circumstances without the authorization of the copyright holder. This is called fair use. It is allowed for purposes of criticism, news reporting, teaching, and parody, which doesn't infringe of copyright under 17 U.S.C. 107. And also, if you guys would help us spread this story, we want to try to get as many of these stories out as possible. But share Cupcake's story, because this has been a long time coming to try to get some justice. You can click that thumbs up and share this video. It'll help us out tremendously, especially if there are other true crime communities. You can share this video, and hopefully we can continue to kind of grow together, okay? Here we go. Let's get it.
It took jurors in the federal kidnapping trial of Derek Brown less than an hour and a half to find her guilty of kidnapping 3-year-old Kamille Cupcake McKinney.
ABC 3340's Valerie Bell is at the federal courthouse in Tuscaloosa where the verdict was handed down. Valerie.
Stephen, when the verdict was read, Derek Brown showed no emotion. However, you could see the relief on the faces of family members of Cupcake McKinney. They were hugging each other and hugging the prosecution. Prosecutors say today the jury stood up for Cupcake and for justice.
Next week is Thanksgiving. It's going to be 3 years since Cupcake McKinney was taken. This will be the 4th Thanksgiving that her family has had to miss her. There's going to be an empty seat at that table and an empty spot on the playground where she should have been with her cousins and with her friends.
It took a jury of 3 women and 9 men an hour and 15 minutes to find Derek Brown guilty on all counts. In October, a federal jury in Jefferson County found Brown's co-conspirator Patrick Stallworth also guilty of kidnapping.
We didn't want to celebrate after the Stallworth verdict because the job wasn't done. It wasn't done until we got both defendants.
For the team of prosecutors, both these trials were emotionally difficult.
It comes over you sometimes in unexpected ways. Sometimes, it just hits you and you realize, what was lost because of the defendant's actions. They stole Cupcake McKinney. It wasn't an accident, it was a crime.
Prosecutors say this verdict sends a strong warning.
When you harm children, when you harm the most vulnerable of victims, we're going to put resources after it, and we're going to find you, and we're going to bring you to justice.
I love it. Well said. Well said. Well said.
First look at what evidence the U.S. Attorney's Office will lay out against Patrick Stallworth at his upcoming trial. He's accused of kidnapping and killing Kamille Cupcake McKinney back in 2019. We do want to warn you, some of these details are graphic. So here's the 4 pieces of evidence that we have learned about. After his arrest in October of 2019, the FBI says that it found child pornography on Patrick Stallworth's phone. Court records show Stallworth claimed to be watching a movie when the pictures popped up. He says he accidentally screenshotted them.
Secondly, the Jefferson County coroner says that he found meth in Kamille McKinney's system at the time of her death. A witness says Stallworth tried to sell him what he called ice prior to the murder. Court records show that Stallworth told investigators he was selling drugs on the same day that the witness was approached. She also says the second suspect, Derek
Irisha Brown, a.k.a. Quintessa Jackson. I'm going to keep repeating that name so that way we can know exactly what her name is.
was smoking ice the same day McKinney's body was found in a dumpster.
And both of these people are pedophiles. This child was prepubescent. This is the epitome of a pedophile. So for those who don't know the difference, prepubescence is pedophile. That's what these two people are.
That was in Center Point.
The third piece of evidence also revolves around the toxicology report. So it found trazodone in McKinney's system as well. This is an antidepressant that can double as a sleeping medication. Before being charged in the murder, court records show Stallworth told investigators he was on a depression medication. A few days later, Brown told investigators that Stallworth gave her pills several times the day of the murder.
And finally, at least 2 witnesses expected to testify saying that Stallworth tried to give children candy. One of the witnesses says that Stallworth offered her candy as she left school for the day. The second witness expected to say that Stallworth was known to offer candy to children, adding people who lived in the area considered it inappropriate.
It's a lot of things. Maybe I shouldn't even say this, but I'm going to insinuate what I'm saying. There's a lot of things that we commit black on black violence for. You ever notice how it's always over something like gangs or money? It's never over trying to protect children. He was known to offer alleged candy to kids. Known. That means people are saying that they knew that this was going on and they didn't do something about it. I don't understand how that works. Because somebody got on red or blue, they can get shot. Because somebody throw up the wrong gang sign, they could get shot. Because you didn't like the way that somebody looked at you, you could get shot. Because you was disrespecting somebody on social media, you could get shot. Because you accidentally stepped on somebody's shoes in the club, you scuffed up their new J's, they could get shot. You spill somebody's drink, they could get shot. You look at somebody's girlfriend's butt the wrong way, you get shot. But you perpetrate predatory behavior on children and you don't hear nobody doing nothing about that. Oh yeah, we knew that he was behaving this way and he continued to get to do it until he finally took advantage of a child and did a whole lot of messed up stuff to her, then caused her death, then dumped her body. Isn't that something? And they walked away scot-free. Now the state's going to have to deal with it. I'm not insinuating that people should do something, but I'm just pointing out how I just don't understand the logic of non-law-abiding citizens. I really don't. I don't.
2019, Fox 10 News updated you extensively on the kidnapped Birmingham toddler 3-year-old Kamille McKinney, better known as Cupcake. Days later, she was unfortunately found dead in a dumpster, and yesterday would have been her 6th birthday. Fox 10 News' Lacey Beasley has more on how her family honored Cupcake's short life. Lacey?
Hey, Stephen, it was the worst possible outcome for the family, but somehow they're still putting on a smile to honor the life and legacy of their adored little girl, Cupcake McKinney.
Precious, innocent Kamille Cupcake McKinney, heartlessly killed after being kidnapped from a birthday party in Birmingham nearly 3 years ago. Her body later found in a dumpster. Friday, she would have been turning 6 years old.
She was just a light, had a smile that can light up a room. Very spunky attitude. She loved the Peppa Pig.
Family and friends gathered at Railroad Park in Birmingham, wearing Cupcake's favorite color, pink.
Thank you for letting us celebrate our baby once again. We love you, Cupcake!
People, especially my people, please stop doing balloon releases. You're trashing your neighborhoods, trashing your environments. That stuff is going to get caught up in power lines, trees, people's yards. Animals are going to eat it, and it's going to kill wildlife. Please stop doing that. I cannot believe that people don't understand that you should have been and stopped doing balloon releases. Light some candles. What's wrong with that? Hold hands, pray. There's a lot more productive stuff you can do than put out air litter and litter every damn place with a bunch of balloons. Wish people would stop doing that.
Releasing balloons, remembering.
Matter of fact, just to let y'all know, I don't know if y'all know this, but there's some states that have already made it a finable offense. You could actually get a ticket for doing what they just did. That's already that law is in effect in certain states already. I'm just saying, maybe we should stop the stupidity so we don't have to have laws on the books for stupidity.
Their special little girl.
We can't celebrate the dog. We're going to always celebrate the beautiful light of her. She got to live through us. She might not be here physically, but she going to always live through me and mine. So we're going to celebrate her every year.
Through shaky breath, her mother has a message for parents, so they will hopefully never walk in her shoes.
Be aware of what's around your door. And, you know, teach their kids, you know, not to accept no candy, nothing from anybody. Because, you know, it could have easily been anybody. And, you know, my baby, she was took right out my cousin's yard. And, you know, that's something I never forget.
Now, the suspects right behind me, Patrick Stallworth and Derek Brown, were charged by the state back in 2020 for capital murder of a child under 14 and capital murder of a child during kidnapping, along with additional federal charges. Now, according to court records last month, federal prosecutors filed notice they will not seek the death penalty. Reporting live in studio.
They won't. They need to. Matter of fact, thank you for bringing that up. Kind of like the Cain Velasquez story. If y'all can look that story up, I also did a video on that as well. But if you're familiar with his story, how he believed that there was a child being attacked and he took it into his own hands. I remember I told you guys, I don't advocate people breaking the law, but I do understand if you, like in that case, did it for a just cause to protect children. It's like, I get it. I don't advocate for it, but I understand though. I definitely understand. And that was the point that I was making earlier. So thank you for bringing that up.
Lacey Beasley, Fox 10 News.
Yeah, one of the most emotional moments, Guy, I would have to say, was when FBI agents pulled out a blood-stained plastic mattress cover, a cover that prosecutors say contains the DNA of Patrick Stallworth, who's on trial, Derek Brown is co-defendant, and 3-year-old
Derek Irisha Brown, a.k.a. Quintessa Jackson. That's her real name.
Cupcake McKinney. Now, most of the testimony today did focus on a variety of...
Derek Irisha Brown is a female that gave the wrong name. Let me show you again who we're talking about. That person is who they're claiming as Derek Irisha Brown. I want to make sure that y'all get that. Her real name is Quintessa Jackson. Her name is not Derek Brown. Her name is not Derek Irisha Brown. Her real name is Quintessa Jackson. I want to make sure we clarify that.
Videos, police body cameras, a number of business security footages, and this black and white clip taken from the Tom Brown Village around the time McKinney was taken there back in 2019. It shows an adult male walking to the left with 2 small children following him into the darkness. FBI agent Jonathan Spaeth, who interviewed Stallworth 4 days after McKinney's disappearance, was one of the day's main witnesses. He told the jury that Stallworth admitted he was at the Tom Brown Village complex that night in 2019. He even recalled speaking to 2 small children there. Agent Spaeth was asked if that adult in the video was Patrick Stallworth. He replied, "I think it's consistent with the way he walks and the clothes he was wearing that day." But when asked about the kids, added, "I cannot say that it is Cupcake." Now, another moment to note today, there was a teenager called to the stand. She testified about how when she was leaving cheer practice the day of the kidnapping, there was an SUV that pulled up. A man asked her if she wanted candy. Today, she was asked if she could identify that person in the courtroom. Initially, she said no twice before nodding affirmation. Coming up at 6, we'll have more details on today's testimony. Well, Sherry and Guy, I've been covering trials for 25 years, and today's 62-minute deliberation was one of the fastest verdicts I believe I've ever seen. Now, the jury began debating Patrick Stallworth's fate shortly before lunch today, and had reached a unanimous decision before the lunch hour was even over. He was guilty of the fatal kidnapping of Kamille Cupcake McKinney 3 years ago next week. Prosecutors proved to the jury that Stallworth snatched the 3-year-old from a birthday party before her body was found 10 days later, filled with meth and other drugs. The defense tried to put all the blame on Stallworth's co-defendant Derek Brown, claiming she kidnapped Cupcake without...
Derek Irisha Brown, her real name is actually Quintessa Jackson. Every time they say that, I'm going to correct it.
his knowledge. But multiple security videos, police statements, and forensic evidence convinced the jury of Stallworth's guilt. Prosecutors say they were pleased to deliver justice for Cupcake.
A girl who would be 6 years old, in first grade, with a lot of dreams ahead of her.
Well, Ian, during Patrick Stallworth's police interview the day the Cupcake McKinney was found, he told police that day that it was his co-defendant that actually suffocated the 3-year-old to stop her from crying. Well, the police investigator, Jonathan Ross, was the top witness of today's trial. He is actually the lead police investigator on the fatal kidnapping of Cupcake McKinney. But for most of the morning, he testified about Patrick Stallworth's October 22nd, 2019 police interview. The prosecution played clips of it for the jury. At one point during the recording, Stallworth told police how co-defendant Derek Brown wanted
otherwise known as Quintessa Jackson,
him to touch McKinney inappropriately, but he refused. Then at some point, Stallworth claimed Brown tried to put the baby to sleep, but he said the 3-year-old would not stop crying. Then a detective asked, "What did Derek do?" In tears, Stallworth mumbled, "I think she," and then stopped. The detective followed, "I can't hear you." Stallworth replied, "I think she choked her. She might have choked her." Well, that was just the beginning of today's emotional testimony. Coming up at 5, we'll highlight what the coroner's office had to say about McKinney's death. Live in Birmingham, John Pappy, WVTN 13.
Okay, so to clarify, this person, Derek Irisha Brown, whose real name is Quintessa Jackson, is not claiming to be a man. That's not what she's doing. What she was doing was she gave what's called a fake name. So there was a person, you'll have to go back and watch my video on this, that actually explained it, even though she was a little bit hood the way that she explained it. But the way that she explained it was that in this particular jail system, they will just assign you whatever name that you give them if you don't actually have identification. So that was the name that she gave, Derek Irisha Brown, and that's what they started to refer to her as. That's how they charged her, and that's how they're going to sentence her, as that name. Even though her actual legal name is Quintessa Jackson. Either way it goes, as long as she gets the ultimate penalty under law, then it is what it is. But they both need to suffer for what they did. They both were equally responsible. Neither one of them's culpability is greater than the other. Both of these people need life in prison, or if they give them the death sentence, then I think they both deserve it for what they did to that baby. This is such a long time coming. I thank you guys so much for being patient, and I'm glad that we're finally starting to get the facts now. But what that baby went through was absolutely horrible. I remember the biological father. He had like gold teeth in his mouth. He did a couple of interviews, and it just really, really sucks that not only him, but the biological mother had to go through this, because they thought initially that this might have been like a paid hit against one of the father's enemies or whatever the case is, like some street beef or something. Don't even know if this was the cause of that or not. But nonetheless, I'm glad that they're at least going to get some justice, but that baby deserves such better, man. It just really sucks. So Cupcake McKinney, this is almost a conclusion to her story. Young princess, R.I.P. But thank you guys so much for listening, and we thank you guys so much who've been following this story for all of these years. But thank you. Like, share, subscribe to the AFC podcast. Thank you.